Okay.
Okay. So this is Corey, final two confessional interview thingamajig. So, um, all I gotta say is, wow, fucking wow. Um, I started this game on day one with the idea that I was gonna just go out guns ablazing, or come in guns ablazing, I should say. Um, Played hard from the very beginning. Did not expect to get here. But as things just kept happening and happening, I saw it more and more. And last night was just one of the most emotional nights from start to finish, just in terms of losing that first part of the challenge that I knew that was my only chance to get to the final part. And had I gotten to the final part, I would have won. I was doing the questions along with them. I pretty much got, I think, all one, but maybe one right. Um, when Tulsi won, I sincerely thought I was going home. I thought she was going to take Lana because even though I didn't have confirmation until last night, I was pretty certain that Lana had also had a final two with Tulsi or some kind of a deal. I think Lana would have gone with me just because she knew she could beat me. But I felt like Tulsi would have done the opposite. But that's not the case. My shock factor face last night was genuine. I genuinely was shocked. I also was genuinely not thrilled with the way Lana went out. You know, she has talked about all game about being just nice and kind and this and that. And I felt she was, and I understand that she was trying to defend her game and why she deserves to be here and that kind of thing, but she completely shit on me while doing it. And then when I went to go have my piece, she completely decided to talk over me. And I just was, I know I gave a few facial expressions. I really don't regret it because I felt like it was completely unnecessary, and we saw a completely different person in those couple of minutes. I'm sure it was just the upset factor being eliminated, going to jury when you're that close. With me, I genuinely thought it was going to be me. I had accepted it. So I can't blame her too much, but it was so annoying. But anyways, I know that I'm probably not winning this game. I'm almost 99% confident in that. But I'm still going to give my heart out. I suck at public speaking, but I'm just going to go out there and do the best that I can and expect to be eaten alive, but that's okay. All right, that's all I got.
Okay, so we're going to take a little walk down memory lane. So we're going to take you back to cast reveal. We talked a little bit about this during the look back, where you talked about a few people you were excited to see. Just take me through what your head was thinking as you were seeing the cast reveal. Who were you most excited about? Who were you most worried about? Just what were you feeling? And then proceed to talk about kind of the blind pick vote and how you were voted.
Sure. So in round one, I would say the people I was most excited to see were Maddie and Alex, just because I did have prior relationships with them and I knew that I could use that to my benefit, which I obviously did. When I saw people like Sean and Zach, I was like, well, fuck my life. This is going to be terrible. I played with them before. It didn't go well that time. And while it wasn't instantly bad with Sean, it got pretty quickly bad, but it's all right. They didn't last long, so it didn't hurt me too bad. And then other people, I was just like meh kind of too. But and I know I said this last night when I saw people like Tulsi and Lana, I definitely knew that those were two of the people that I didn't know that I wanted to get to know early, because I knew that I had heard of Tulsi before, and Lana, you could just tell she was very personable in her intro video, and people like that tend to do extremely well in these games in terms of the social aspect. So I definitely wanted to be linked up with people like that. Everyone else, I didn't really have a neither here nor there reaction towards. Except I would say the one that didn't work out the way I necessarily wanted to was Brayden. Because I knew he knew Natalie, I wanted to try to use that to my advantage. Didn't work out the way I wanted. And then Bill, I was 50-50 on. I wasn't sure. I had heard of him before, but I wasn't sure if it was going to turn into much. And while I feel like we did have a better relationship than I anticipated, it never got to more than a surface level with me, at least. And then what was the other question? Oh, the blind vote.
Yes.
So having a friend circle that has all played this game, I knew coming into it that there was going to be some kind of a vote at first. And one of my friends that is not in the VL had told me that if there is a vote, you need to go for it. So I went for it. And anyone else that knows me knows that I don't do anything quietly. So the minute it popped out of Papa's mouth, I literally was like, I'll do it. And I knew that I could very well get over that because people could see me as loud, obnoxious, annoying, which I think some people did. But it also helped me, I guess, chill that first round, which then allowed me to form my bonds and relationships with people like Lana, and then Maddie and Alex I already had, but it helped us to form our group of four. So, yeah, I know I definitely wanted it, though, because I did not want to be freaking out towards the first round. I wanted that safety. Now, as in past seasons, the first person got to pick mobs, so I was expecting that. That didn't turn out the way I wanted, which is honestly probably for the best. But it got me my nullifier in this game, which ended up being a very important part of the game later on. So had I not gone for it, who knows how the game would have transpired.
So then talk a little bit, I know you mentioned a little bit about the first round. Talk about that first vote for you. Was it impactful at all? Were you able to position yourself since you were not in the fray at all? Or do you think that puts you at any disadvantage being normally the person that gets voted doesn't get to participate in the heist, but they do at least get to participate in the vote and they're somewhat incorporated with safety. You, on the other hand, didn't get to participate in the heist, but you also did not get to participate in the vote. So you held little power or little influence that round. Did that impact your game? Was it something you had to overcome, or did it really not factor in?
It definitely impacted it in the fact that many people didn't talk to me on their own. I had to reach out to a lot of people that round because I wasn't going to just sit there and be a dead fish. But it definitely, like, I barely talked to anybody that round except for mainly the people that I ended up making the four with. I think I might have talked to people like Brayden and Tulsi a little bit. But I still tried to have some kind of an influence on the vote, even though I wasn't in the vote. I remember when they lost and Colin completely fucked himself. I was talking with Alex, and Colin was somebody that I knew of coming into this game, and we had talked a little bit, and we had a pretty decent relationship, and I knew that he would benefit me in this game, so I did not want him to go home. And Alex was so pissed off that he had fucked up that challenge, and in my mind, it seemed like at the time that Alex wanted him gone. And I just tried to like calm Alex down and remind him that this game is very different than other games. You can't really vote based on challenge strength because somebody that's on your mob one round may not be on it the next. So I don't know if that really had any if that did anything with the vote, but I tried to at least plant that little seed. And other than that, with the vote, I didn't have much say. Galen, like I said yesterday, I didn't talk at all the entire round. I think it had a lot to do with the fact that I was safe, and then also because I just don't think he was as social as he may have thought he was. But I got no communication with him, so. But I tried to at least have my say in who went home. So that was that round.
So Galen went home, and then we do find you actually on a mob the next round. They're a little bit smaller because we did 3 mobs, so there were 6 people. And you ended up on, let's see, looks like Prohibition. Bill chose you first. Talk a little bit about getting chosen first, if there was any discussion leading up to that, and then just overall going to a 2 mob elimination, the complexities of that, factoring in exactly what you just said. The people you were with and you're voting out right now, you very well could be against the very next round. So what was your first round voting and going to elimination like?
So I was kind of freaking out because the others had all done it before. I had not, so I didn't know what to expect. At this point, we had a good idea that Lana was probably going to win just based on the challenge that it was, being the infomercial and her being an actress and all that. So when I say we, me, Alex, Maddie, and Lana had sat down and we had kind of tried to come up with an idea, like we did every round, of what would happen if she did win. And since the other person that ended up winning was not in our group, because we had a feeling it was going to be Bill, she wasn't able to like completely dictate the mobs. But we had decided on the idea of having to try to get all of us together so that we would all be safe. Having her not pick any of us and trying to almost force Bill to pick all of us. That way, she would still vote with us in the case that we lost. Now, this is before we had any knowledge of it being a 3. We only were expecting 2. But then Bill comes out of the gate and literally picks me, Alex, and Maddie one by one. I'm still a little shaded by that. Part of me thinks that Lana did have a conversation with Bill about that. She says she did not. I've come to learn what Lana says in this game isn't always necessarily the truth after I've learned what I've learned. But she very well may not have, and it may have just been pure luck. But then, luckily, he picked us 3 first, because then it ended up only being 5 people getting picked for each mob before there was a mob of 6 of the people not picked. So, definitely worked out in our favor. Did you want me to go into the challenge and all that, too?
Anything that was of note to you in the game, anything that impacted your game is kind of something we want to debrief.
So the challenge was epically terrible. We did, whenever it came to like, trying to think, whenever it came to us being the person picking, because it was the match game style thing, when people had to match with us, we all did epically terrible. Like Maddie and his whale, me and my mud, Grace and her date. We just epically failed. I knew immediately we were losing. And then I went into, okay, like, what's going to happen? And, of course, the other group that loses is the group of what we called the quote-unquote inactive, because all the people not picked, for the most part, other than, like, Sean and Zach, were people that weren't around much. So there wasn't much communication really going on about the vote, which freaked me out. And of course, my paranoia self, I'm trying not to really think much about it. But we had me, Lana, Maddie, Alex, so I did feel comfortable in that factor. Grace wasn't really talking to people, neither was Brandon. We ended up settling with Grace. But then come the vote, there's 2 rogue votes for me, and that pisses me off. But that moves more into the next round, so I will stop there.
So you can keep going anytime you want, but the next round was round 3. On that round, Braden and Matt infamously won as a duo, and there were some pre-planned mobs picked. Again, there were 3 mobs that round. So you ended up getting chosen last by Maddie on the underestimators. But again, you lost. So you can talk a little bit about maybe the hubbub leading up to that and then that round in general.
Yeah, so prior to the round actually starting, there was the talk about who potentially voted for me and all of that. I, of course, was pissed. The name then changes to Bitch Hunters for the Alliance because we're hunting bitches, aka the people that voted for me. I knew that the sole purpose of these 2 people was to give me paranoia and to piss me off and to get me to explode, per se. Because I knew this had to be 2 people that knew how I was in the past and that wanted to get into my head. Therefore, I quickly drew my eyes to Mr. Sean Dyro. But I knew it had to be 2 people connected very well. So I was like, it could be Sean, it could be Zach, it could be Oakley, some combination of them. For a while, I did think it was Sean and Zach until I didn't anymore. But yeah, definitely those 2 were on my radar, and I wanted to do whatever it took to get them out of the game once it was time. And then we go into round 3, where I know you had mentioned that Matty picked me last for his mob. I was okay with that because he had already warned me that was going to happen. Because that's when Braden decided to go to Sean and comes to find out Tulsi as well, which nobody knew about. Nobody. And that's another reason why she's winning the game, but we'll get to that eventually. That chick was able to keep that quiet, and she had a huge hand in that. While Braden got blown, she did not. She is brilliant, and I am like all for Tulsi winning this game. I feel like I deserve some votes, but that chick deserves to win. But regardless, I'm digressing here. So Maddie gets all pissed off when he finds out that Braden's directing the mobs, and Sean and Braden did not want me picked for a mob. Well, that wasn't going to happen. So Maddie, I think, switched me and Bill out and picked me instead of Bill. We still lost the freaking competition, which pissed me off because we literally, I think that was Codenames, and we lost it by 1 thing. And that was like, Tulsi and Lana were like arguing with me about which one we should go with. And I'm like, guys, my gut is telling me that this. It was so long ago, I don't remember what the word was. But they were arguing. I was arguing. I ended up just letting them do it because I'm like, you know what? If they're wrong, and not me. And they were wrong. I was right. We ended up losing. So, and then we lost with whatever mob Sean was on with Jasmine and all that. And this is when I'm still fresh off my pissed offness from my votes, and I still haven't suspicion that it's Sean, even though it wasn't. So I planted in the seeds of everybody that Sean needs to go. He's connected to everybody. He's using everybody, and at this point he was. I mean, he had his little hand and ears in everybody's ear, or his mouth in everybody's ear. You know what I mean? I'm tired. And he was planting little seeds, and we were all comparing notes, and things just weren't adding up. So I was like, can we just do Sean? And so I went to Jasmine, and that's when I let Jasmine know all the stuff that Sean had been saying about her. And we joined forces together to create that group of 7 that would essentially get rid of Sean. It did require us to use the 4 of our votes, me, Alex, Maddie, Lana, but also gather votes from Tulsi, Logan, oh good Lord Jesus, who was the 4 of Jose? Who was the 7th one? Jasmine, duh. So Jasmine was easy. Once I told her what was happening, she was fully on board. Logan and Tulsi, I wasn't sure how much influence I was going to have. Logan, I knew I had no influence, so I had to leave that to people like Alex and Lana, who talked to her more. Tulsi, I feel like I could talk a little bit to, but I knew she probably had a stronger bond with people like Lana and then maybe even Alex because they had played Power before. So, but I did go on call with Tulsi, and we talked about, even before we talked about it, this is when the 2048 Power was going on. I called and I let her know about that. While we're doing that, that's when we talked about the Sean idea. And I wanted to like tell her about that so she gathered trust with me. And then this. Not knowing at the time that she had, at this point, had an alliance with Brayden and Sean, but was already starting to see through it. So she ended up finding that 2048 Power, which we'll get to that later because I didn't find out till round 4. But as soon as I got off call with her, I finished it, and I knew I didn't have it. So I thought somebody like Sean may have gotten it, but I wasn't letting it influence my decision. I still wanted Sean gone. So once the original 4 got back together, we discussed, we felt we had all individually talked to Tulsi and Logan and Jasmine, and they all had agreed to do it. And at that point, it just took trust of 7. That's a lot of people, but 7 individuals to get this one move to happen. And I do still to this day feel like that move was one that did shift the narrative of the game. Had Sean stayed in this game, things would have been a lot different. We did have to deal with a lot of backlash from people like Colin and Zach and Caitlin because they were left out of it. But it was something that I was willing to deal with. Him going, we ended up finding out eventually that he was not the person that voted for me, but I still do not regret it because of how connected he was.
So Sean was a shakeup, and like you said, the kind of the 7 group formed. So I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but at some point discuss how difficult it was to trust 7 people, what challenges that was, especially in an ever-changing game, and how quickly, or if at all, there was loyalty there.
There was loyalty to the 7, but at first, the original loyalty, at least with me, was to the 4. Inside of the 7, outside of the 4, the ones that I did trust was Tulsi and only Tulsi. Logan and Jasmine. Logan, I never had 1 ounce of trust for in this game. He never talked to me. He never tried to talk to me. I feel like Logan was just kind of here. And that's why I knew having Lana would help because she could get to Logan. And as long as Lana talked to Logan, Logan would be fine. And then Jasmine, I always felt was a ticking time bomb, but I also felt like she was going to be so indebted to us that she would not turn against us because she'd be indebted, which I was eventually wrong about as well. But overall, the group of 7, there was loyalty in the fact that we did stay together, and we eventually added Bill to it after that round, because Bill would have been in it had he been in our mob, or in one of the mobs voting, I should say. I'm trying to think of what else I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, the original loyalty was always to the people that I was with from the start. I think it definitely also, I mean, the fact that there was 7 people that voted together, well, technically 8, but Braden was not in on the plan. But since there was 7 people that voted together, people were pinning us from the start, and that did come to affect the next round, which we'll get to in a second. But it, when you have 7 clear people voting together, people get suspicious, and we had to work pretty hard the next round to make sure that we still came out alive.
Okay, so the next round didn't get any less hectic. We had rocks, but it was your birthday. How much did the birthday curse play into you playing your idol? This is the second time an idol has been played on someone's birthday in Ascendance. Both times the idols were wasted. The other person would be JG, who is on production. And he speaks a lot to where if it wasn't his birthday, he probably wouldn't have played the idol. It just gets into your head, especially if it's happened to you before. So talk a little bit about the drama leading up to that vote and how nervous you really were, and how, what percent of confidence you were that the vote was landing on you that night.
Well, one thing that I forgot to mention in the last round was on his way out, Sean decided to tell everybody about my getaway car and my nullifier. And so that really pissed me off, but I'm like, well, I'm using my idol now the next time I lose, regardless, because I'm not going home with an idol on my pocket. And it just so happened that the next time we lost ended up being on my birthday. So when we did lose, I immediately put in the chat, I'm using my idol. I'm not going home on my birthday. And I wanted to get that in their head. Was I actually going to use it at that point? I don't know, but I at least wanted them to think that. And I'm going to back up just a little bit, because when Braden created these mobs, he created them to put me, Alex, and Tulsi in a terrible position, in the hopes that one of us would go home. Tulsi was all with people that she pissed off in the vote against Sean. And because he thought that he had a 3 group with him, or because he had a 3 group with Sean and her, he felt utterly betrayed, I guess. And so that's why he did that. I'm trying to get that light out of my way. This is a bad angle. And then me and Alex, we were just, I guess, 2 that Braden didn't talk to as much from the people that voted for Sean. So we were set up in a bad position. And then we did lose. And then, like I said, I told everybody that I'm using my idol. And I didn't focus on it too much the rest of that night. This was, the Thursday before my birthday, the Thursday before the vote. I was like, we're not going to have the numbers. I'd almost given up in a way. I'm like, I'm using my idol. I'm not stressing. I'm going to enjoy my vacation. And that's that. Well, then the next day, things started to get spicy. Because I had gone down to the beach. I was chilling. I was having fun. I was like chatting with people and things, but I was trying to enjoy myself. And then I had come up to take a nap because I was tired. And I'm not a huge like down on the beach person, because sand, that's just gross. So I had come upstairs and I was laying down watching TV, and then Tulsi wanted to call. So we went on call, and that is the start of what became like a 7-hour conversation. The production was pretty much on every minute of. Because she told me, that is when she proceeded to tell me that she did get the 2848 power. She had told me at the time that I was the first person she was telling, which I did not believe at the time. But now, having all the information that I do have, she does say that I was the first person to know about it. And I was so excited because we had that, and we could maybe possibly do something now. And then eventually, this was so long ago, so trying to like actually remember exactly what happened is hard. But eventually, we pulled in Lana and Alex, and we talked to them. Lana was able to use her power to find out the votes from round 2 that completely let us know that Oakley and Zach were the ones that voted for me. And that was important knowledge because Alex and Tulsi thought that they could potentially get Oakley on our side, which was obviously very, very wrong. And that showed us that. And then at that point, having the steal a vote, all that really did was we were still setting ourselves up for a potential tie and this and that, or not a tie, I'm sorry. We were setting ourselves up for things not going exactly the way we needed them and not having enough votes. So I think I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I think I messaged Lana and Alex and I'm like, should we tell her about Maddie's double vote? We need to get that double vote. That is the only hope that we have. So that's what we did. We told her about Maddie's double vote. Lana had a long conversation with Maddie. I think Tulsi ended up having a conversation with Maddie. Maddie was being stingy with this power prior. He was not acting like he would ever give it up. But I knew that Maddie, if he was pushed up against the wall enough, would give it because he did not want to seem disloyal or untrustworthy or doing one for the team. So he eventually did give us that double vote, which was amazing. So we had a double vote. We had the idol. We had the steal a vote. I, at one point, was almost certain I was going to use the idol on Alex. Because at one point in the day, Gigi, gotta love her. Gotta love Gigi. Pink Power Ranger, love you. But she said to me that she had heard either Alex or I think we had said Brandon was the decoy vote or whatnot. So when she said Alex, I was like, oh, I don't think Gigi was supposed to tell me that. And then she told me that Blake is the one that told her Alex. And Blake was trying to make it seem like he was all hunky-dory with us. Well, no. So, but I didn't know if Gigi was like playing me and she just like threw that to see if I would tell people. So I started getting in my head. And then because it was my birthday, I'm like, well, what if they're voting me because they think I'm decoying about using my idol? And so I, in the end, did make the decision to use it on myself. I know it was the selfish decision, but I did not want to go home on my birthday while on the beach, and it just would not have looked well. So I did use it on myself, which had I used it properly, Brandon would have gone home. And we wouldn't have even needed the steal a vote, and we wouldn't have even needed the double vote. But I used it improperly.
I think you mean Zach.
No, Brandon would have gone home had I used the. Oh wait, no, you're right. I did mean Zach. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I did mean Zach. Yeah. You got to remember, I'm talking about rounds that were weeks ago. My brain hurts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I stare at the data, making up questions and things. So.
Oh, Zach would have gone home. You're right, because because we had thought that had I used the idol and they had split it, if I used the idol properly and we had split it, that it would go to a tie. But because we stole the one vote, but we ended up stealing the wrong vote because Kate voted for herself because she wasn't there. But so there was only 2 votes Brandon and 3 votes Zach. So Zach would have gone home. Correct. So had I used it properly, Zach would have gone home. We wouldn't have had to force rocks. It would have all been fine and dandy. Not how it happened, but because we did have the steal a vote and the double vote, we were still able to push it to a tie. This is when I think the first real moment in the game, in my opinion, that people saw how I can be in these games. And when I say that, I mean I just go balls to the wall, don't care what I say, whose feelings I hurt, and not in like a personal way, but just in like a game manner, trying to save my ally. And I put everything out there for Zach. There was some things brought up that I guess hurt his feelings, that hurt other people's feelings that were in the game. It was not meant to be anything worth that. It got, in my opinion, way blown out of proportion because I was not trying to personally attack him. It's genuinely how I felt. Maybe it was not the right time nor place to bring it up, but I was heated. I was trying to save my ally, and I needed the other people that voted for Alex originally to see what I saw. It created a little bit of drama after the vote, but we'll talk about that later, I guess. So I put it all out there. We re-voted. Somebody that had voted for Brandon flipped their vote to Zach. And somebody that voted for Brandon also flipped their vote to Alex, but we at least got one, and that's all we needed to force rocks. Because I was safe because of the idol. Alex was safe because of the rock or the deadlock. Tulsi was the only one that was vulnerable. But then when we go to the rock, it just misses Tulsi and lands on Blake, and life was good. It was the craziest round that I've ever been a part of in an org, and I still to this day am in disbelief that, yes, there were 5 people that made it happen, but there were 3 people that were actually voting. So 3 people in a vote of 11. 11 people were voting that round. We only had 3. We were able to make that shit happen. And that's pretty damn big.
I cannot wait till after the season so you can kind of see the votes and realize how many ways that night could have gone and all the different combinations.
I'm sure.
We really just did not know what was going to happen, which was exciting. And we really didn't think for sure rocks were going to happen. So anyway, happy birthday to both of us. We'll get to my rocks birthday soon enough. But next, we'll move on to round 5. It was a little bit hectic. It seems like there was kind of a plan going on that Bill seemed to kind of leak in the mob, which is the only reason that production felt better, because we thought that the very first challenge was very easy and you were struggling so hard with it. And I'm like, how are they not figuring out this unscramble? And then Bill kind of clued us in on what was going on. So just talk about a little bit about the plan going into that night. And obviously, it doesn't sound like it went the way you wanted it. And Zach ended up biting the bullet.
Yeah, it didn't go the way we wanted, but in my opinion, as you know, it did not go bad at all. But yeah, so the original plan was to build the mobs in order to get Brayden out. And then whoever ended up on a mob with Brayden was supposed to throw so that we could get rid of Brayden. I was the first one to go in the unscramble with Jasmine, and I'm sitting there just looking at it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it. And it did take me like a couple of like minutes to figure out the season part of the word. But I was like letting Jasmine go. And then when Jasmine sounded so confident and then said one Zaz, I'm like, what? Jasmine, you're not the one throwing this competition. I am.
Oh my gosh. Now I know what you guys have been talking about all season. When you said that, I had no clue that's what you were referring to.
Yes, one Zaz had everything to do with the fact that she did not unscramble the last word. She just left it the way that it was on there, I think. And she was like, what is the name of this? One-zaz. And I'm like, huh? So I was completely thrown off with that. And then I this was my fault. I was stupid and just read the thing rather than actually saying the name of the season. So she got to go again. And I gave her about a minute or two to like think it through and answer. And then when I realized she wasn't going to do it, I'm like, you know what? I can't anymore. And I just answered it. But then as we go on and the challenges go on and more people are winning and not doing what they're supposed to do, Bill goes in the chat, are we throwing? And he does it in the main challenge chat for Brayden to see, I'm sure. And at that point, I mean, there was no more throwing really that could potentially be done. So we ended up winning. And the only real person on the other end that could go that would make much sense was Zach. And in my opinion, it was just as good of a vote off because I knew he was after me. So he had to go eventually. We had a list of 4 people that could go. Yes, we had an order that we wanted them to go, but they all needed to go eventually. And that list was Brayden, Zach, Oakley, and Brandon. And we did eventually pretty much get them all out. Took us a little bit longer to get one out, but we still accomplished the goal there.
My phone is like acting up today. I can't get the touch screen to work. Okay, so we go right into the endurance that was very long for some people, very short for others. Mm-hmm. You were not the only person that had a shirt over your face. Brayden left for the same reason shortly thereafter. Ended up being his downfall that round. You probably have a little bit to say about that. I'm not for sure if you have much to say about Brandon leaving on the other side. But if you could just kind of talk about that double elimination and how it fit into your plans, and then you can proceed into when we announce that there's a back-to-back double elimination and what you were thinking then.
So, Brandon in this game to me, and I don't mean this in any ill nature at all, but he was a non-factor for me in this game. We did not talk. He was not on my side. I did not have Brandon could go whenever. I mean, he did nothing to me. So when it was the vote for him, I was perfectly fine with that. But I was on the mob again where Brayden was on, and I knew that Brayden had to go. Like, we could not allow Brayden to win this. And I knew that Alex was going to go for as long as humanly possible because of the rock situation that had just happened that night. I feel like I'm not great at like physical endurance, but I could have gone a hell of a lot longer than I did. But my idiotic self forgot to bring a blindfold to the beach. And so I'm searching for anything I can possibly use. And I put a fucking pillowcase over my head and I started suffocating. And so I literally lasted, I don't think, more than 2 minutes. And so when I dropped, I just had hope in Alex and it ended up paying off. But I mean, Brayden tried to save himself. He tried to save, he not understanding what was going on in the game. Brayden tried to say that he was one of the Brandon votes. And I'm like, dude, Colin and Gigi came clean with that literally 30 seconds after the vote. You can't come clean 24 hours later and expect us to believe you. Like, no, it just doesn't happen that way. So it was pretty cut and dry with Brayden being the one to go home. He did try to fight a little bit, but I do think he realized that there was no hope. The way he went out was pretty trashy. He got a little personal with me, but it's all right because it just gave me the fuel and the fire and the motivation to go further. It was also a pretty big elimination speech in the fact that he called out me, Lana, and Tulsi, which in fact created the final 3 alliance that would make it to the end. So thank you, Brayden. and the puppeteers were born that night.
So, how were you feeling when you immediately found out there was another double elimination?
Oh, yeah. So honestly, I don't remember. I remember us having like an idea that there might be, but I think I was one that was like, I have never seen an org do 2 back-to-back doubles. There's no way. There's no way. And then there was, and I'm like, well, fuck. So, and then we went directly into the same thing that we've been doing this entire game. We did the challenge. Our alliance got on call. We said who feels like they won, who feels like they didn't. And then we formed mobs based on that. And this one was a little harder because there were partners involved. So, and everyone was, for the most part, partner with somebody not in the group. So they kind of already created mobs with their partner, but we were trying to like make it still work for the group. And for the most part, we thought we had done that, but obviously we hadn't done it well enough.
Okay, so then we do go into the double. Oakley was clearly the target, but went every single round and won every single competition. So he did become safe on that side. And then the presumed backup was Caitlin. And then on the other side, Matt won safety, and the presumed target was between Gianna and Colin, I think leaning toward Gianna, of course. So just talk a little bit about your experience that round. You were obviously not involved in rocks. You weren't involved in the drama afterwards, but just kind of a summary on how that affected your game.
So on my side, like I was very clear I wanted Gianna gone. Colin is somebody that, yes, he wasn't on our side, but he is the reason that we were still prevailing in the game because he did save Alex. So I wanted to save him for that reason. And Gianna, I just have never trusted in the game, so I wanted her gone. It ended up working pretty cut and dry. On the other side, not so much. The other side is the only vote that did not go our way the entire game. I mean, yes, the first rock draw didn't necessarily go our way, but we still made it out alive. This one, not so much. I don't even still to this day really know what happened, and other than Tulsi decided to be honest with Jasmine that she wanted to tell Kate, and I guess that just pissed Jasmine off or spooked her or something. And Jasmine is the type of player you have to hold on a short leash. You have to babysit her every step of the way. If you do not babysit Jasmine, Jasmine is going to explode. And that's exactly what happened. And Alex was the one caught in the explosion, which is unfortunate. I can't talk today. Unfortunate. I love Alex. But, and I've said this many times, I think Alex going set the rest of the game up for the puppeteers to make it to the end of the game, because he was able to give those powers to Tulsi, which we were able to use to take out somebody else later on. And it just fueled our fire to go. And then the aftermath of that vote, Tulsi was very pissed off, which is warranted. She had all right to be. She got very, very drunk. We were on call with her, and she was talking about how she was going to call Jasmine out and talk to Kate and this and that. And then I was on call for the first call that they did, and not much was really happening. I mean, Jasmine and Tulsi were talking about the vote, but it didn't get like out of hand or anything. And so that call ended. I went to bed. I wake up in the morning. Jasmine's not there anymore. Kate's telling me Jasmine's throwing me under the bus. And how it all went down is, so I wake up, I see a message. Kate tells me, bro, Jasmine's throwing you under the bus. So me being me, I then proceed to go to my chat with Jasmine to yell at her and be like, what the fuck is your problem? And Jasmine has left my chat. So then I'm severely confused, and I go to the main chat, and Jasmine has left that chat. So then I like scroll up, I read, I see production going crazy, like, and I'm just like, wow. So finally I was able to get somebody that was awake to fill me in. I watched the video, and apparently I was Jasmine's #1 ally, which is not the case whatsoever. We were not masterminding every vote together like Jasmine said we were. But yeah, I mean, it was very unfortunate that Jasmine felt like she had to quit, but she exploded her own game. And again, it set the course for the game because it brought people together that were against each other, not a couple minutes prior. And had Jasmine not quit, Jasmine would have gone home that round. I'm almost positive.
Let's see. I got to get back on track because now the rounds all changed because Jasmine quit. So we went into we had a round canceled. So one of the group challenges went away, but we did have one more planned, and it was on a live night. So Oakley again was the target, but you guys split up Oakley and Caitlin. I think that was Maddie that did that. Yeah. And Caitlin did get sent home. Alana, Logan, you, and Matt all voted in that elimination. And then we did switch to individuals right in the middle of the night, and you had to choose a co-mob boss. So talk a little bit about Caitlin going home, if there's anything there, and then about your decision to pick Bill and that vote out of Oakley finally.
So the Caitlin vote was pretty clear cut and dry. She was somebody that had also been slipping through the cracks that needed to go. She was very influential. She was very smart in this game in terms of knowing what was going on. I genuinely do believe that Caitlin pinpointed a lot of what was going on before it was public knowledge. And so she had to go, and I didn't want to lie to her. So, I mean, I did tell her that she was going during the live night. And that's when she proceeded to tell me she was going to take 7 alcoholic shots prior to elimination, which was in like 10 minutes. So I'm like, girl. But she went out very graciously, very understanding, great person. I do love Caitlin to death. Then we go to the Oakley vote. But before that, I won, which I was very happy about, but I was also irritated because that's when the touchy subjects and people were voting me for thinking I'm in charge, but not. And I never thought I was in charge. I thought I was part of a group that was in charge, but I never thought that I was running the show at all. I'm playing for second, and it's like, yes, I mean, one could say that, but I just play for the end game, and then I worry about winning when I get there. So there was a little bit of fire in me because I was irritated by that. And then I made a comment to Oakley because he was trolling and pissing me off. I'm like, that's why you're going home, asshole. And that's like, those are really the only 2 like negative comments I had to anybody in this game, which is very rare for me. I usually have a lot more than that. I'm usually cussing people out on the daily. But Oakley did go home. I know he did try to fight a little bit with try to get Bill to save him, which did not work out to his favor. I think, in my opinion, I think Bill realized that he didn't want to piss off the group that had been trying to get Oakley out for a while now. But then I skipped the co-mob boss. So when I won mob boss, I had to give out the co-mob boss, and I knew I was going to have people like Tulsi and Maddie and Lana and all that wanting me to give it to them, but I didn't want to give it to them purely because I didn't want to shine light on us within the group of 7. So I wanted to give it to somebody like Bill or Logan, but I really did not want to give it to Logan because, no, he didn't deserve it. He didn't do anything in this game to deserve safety at all. But we'll get to that later. Bill, the reason I give it to Bill is because I genuinely like Bill as a person, but we just never had a really great connection in the game. So And I knew that him and Logan had like talked about once they got down to the group of 8 to take me out and all of that. And we were getting to that factor soon. So I didn't want to, or the group of 7, whatever it was. And so I wanted to give Bill a little bit of ammunition not to try to throw that to me. So that's why I did give it to Bill. And yeah, that's what I got.
Oh, I am already unmuted on this one. Okay, so then things got confusing is probably not the right word. I was a little surprised that Colin wasn't the next name to come out, but it was Bill. And I think Co-Mob Boss kind of spooked you guys a little bit to kind of try to break up what you perceived as a duo. So the next rounds kind of blend together. I don't think the Bill actual vote out was very game changing, but Lana did have to make a call on who she was going to save, and she chose to save Logan. So if you want to talk about you being a mob boss that had to give a co-mob boss, did you read anything into it? Did you have any concerns? She was the only other person besides you to actually award co-mob boss. So just from a host perspective, wanting to see how that
You there?
Yeah, can you not hear me?
You like cut off.
Okay, did you hear any of my question?
Yeah, I heard you like from a host perspective, and then I didn't hear anything.
Okay, yeah. So from a host perspective, just wanting to know how the co-mob bosses played into strategy. Did it feed any paranoia, etc.? What component to your game was that?
Yeah, like in terms of the co-mob boss, I definitely feel like Lana used that as jury management, and I get it, it's a game move, but it did piss me off a little bit because, again, I don't believe Logan deserves safety in this game ever. But Logan, the reason she wanted to get it to Logan is so he didn't get spooked, and so that we could get him back on our side for the next vote. So she says. But it definitely, I mean, the co-mob boss definitely puts in strategy because you have to figure out, like, and then it deals with the vote as well because and that's more or less why we were able to get the numbers to get Bill out, because Lana was spooked about potentially either Bill or Logan winning immunity or winning Mob Boss and then saving the other one, which was a genuine concern that we did not want to happen. But Maddie had kept, so I haven't really talked about this here because it hasn't come up, but like since like the double, Maddie had been talking about wanting to get Lana and Tulsi out of the game because we can't beat them in the end. But then like come like the live night, he was like trying to like get me to do Bill and Logan because he wanted to like, he perceived them to be closer, Lana and Tulsi to be closer to them than they were to me and Maddie, which I don't genuinely ever believe that, seeing as how the game played out. But where was I going with that? So Maddie wanted Bill out of the game. I wanted Bill out of the game and Logan out of the game purely because I knew eventually they'd come for me. So when Lana came to me after doing her loved ones challenge, saying how she had a conversation with her loved one about Bill, and she didn't really ever go into it per se, but she like kind of started the Bill thing, but it's something that we had already wanted to do. So she may think that she had all this power in it, but no, hun, we were already wanting to do it. We just didn't want to piss you off. So her sparking that allowed us to kind of run full throttle with it. And Tulsi wanted Colin gone because she was worried about Colin cockroaching his way to the end, which he almost did. And then had Colin gotten to the end, she was worried that he would win because he did have a lot of friends on the jury. But the fear of there being the co-mob boss and potentially Bill or Logan winning and then saving the other was a lot more scarier at that point in the game than Colin getting to the end.
I was on mute again. Okay, so I think the rest of the game is kind of in your court because, I mean, the Logan vote was kind of a non-factor. It was just came down to Colin won, and it was kind of interchangeable. If Logan had, or let me rephrase it, if Colin hadn't won, I think probably Colin would have went home that round, correct?
You skipped the Maddie vote.
Oh, I thought that I just asked you about that, but that was just what I typed up. I never actually read it. Okay, so I talked about you being a co-mob boss, and I wrote down my next question and skipped it. I want you to, with the Maddie vote, though, kind of go back to how long he had been kind of pushing the flip and kind of what built up to that.
Yeah, so Maddie had been pushing that ever since he found the 50-50 idol, which was during the immunity of the, or during the mob, or no, the individual immunity part of the second double. And he was questioning whether we should tell the girls or not, because he wanted the girls to go home eventually, and he brought Alex into it. And I think he was trying to like create a final three with me and Alex to take the girls out and all of this. And me and Alex were like not having that. So it was just constant babysitting with Maddie, trying to tell Maddie this wasn't the right time. This wasn't the right time. We still need the girls. And I kept doing that until when it got down to final six, I knew he was like guns ablazing pushing for it. He wanted to use the 50-50 coin on Colin. He wanted to have, when I wanted, he wanted me to give the co-mob boss to him so that all three of us would potentially be safe, and then have one of the girls go home and all this mess. And I knew at that point I could not save him any longer. I had been saving him for so long because the girls wanted to go after Maddie fairly soon after they found out he wanted to go after them. But I kept him at bay, I kept them at bay, and I played the middle. And I'm just like, no, we're not going after anybody. Team loyalty here. Until there was nothing I could do. And that's when Tulsi used the Steal of Power to get the 50-50 coin. And it was an ugly vote because then I had to use the nullifier. But, you know, a lot of people may say that that was the biggest mistake of my game, which in terms of me winning, potentially, yes. But you know what? I don't, and I think I said this yesterday on the Rites of Passage, or maybe when me and you, Nicole, were talking, but I genuinely think that in terms of me having a better chance at winning, I think it would have been better to go with Maddie and Colin. But I genuinely don't know if I would have made the end had I done that, because then I would have had pissed off people. And who knows what Logan would have, or Colin would have done. And I just did not want to rock that boat. I wanted to stay loyal. And I felt like this was my better route to get there. But yeah, I mean, I love Maddie. And I still love him. And he's a great friend of mine. But he did it to himself.
That was probably the most interesting round to me. I when you got the quote, I was very happy about that round because I really think that your game probably was exactly like you said. Like, now you have to make a decision. Like, you've been kicking the can down the road so far, and it really kind of was in your court. So that was, I think, interesting for me to just see which way your game would go. And then I feel like everything after that kind of fell in place. Colin did win, but luckily he didn't win the puzzle. I'm curious what you think would have happened if Colin had won the puzzle. So if you could talk about that a little bit. Feel free to talk about Logan's exit as well if you think it impacted your game. I'm not for sure how much it did.
So Logan had to go eventually. And I know that Maddie always tried to make me believe that Lana and Tulsi and them would pick Logan and Bill over me, and I just genuinely didn't ever think that was the case. So Logan, I'd wanted Logan out of the game for a while, so I was very happy when he did go. We did, at that point, brigade Logan and Colin, and what I mean by that is the Big Brother 12 Alliance that told Brittany about their alliance that had been together for so long, and that's what we did with Logan and Colin that night. And then when Colin did the puzzle, I was just banking on Colin losing that puzzle. Had he won, I honestly, genuinely do not know what would happen. I would want to think that it would have either been Lana or Tulsi to go home, because even though the girls ended up having an alliance from day one, it doesn't sound like either one of them were ever going to be loyal to that alliance from day one, because they knew that they didn't have a chance against the other one, or they had a better chance against me, which is annoying because honestly, I feel like they were only both still in this game as long as they were because of me. Had I not done what I did, and yes, that goes a little bit to them, but to be honest, they had no influence over that decision with me. They did not make me do that. I did that purely because of loyalty. So I don't give them that game move. If anybody, I'm telling you now, if anybody at Final Tribal Council or whatever we call this, finale, whatever, tries to say that that was a game move on them to get me to do that, no, that was not a game move. That was purely me being a loyal motherfucker. They had I did not have to tell them about it, and I did. So I'm digressing a lot, but where was I going with all that?
If Colin had won, how much trouble do you think you would have been in?
So I definitely want to think that the girls would have gone against each other, and that I would have been safe, and I probably would have voted Tulsi out just because I did not realize that I had a feeling she would take me in the end, but I did not, a part of me did think that she would pick Lana over me. So, and I think Lana being as paranoid as she was in this game, and she had at that point already thought that Tulsi would not take her to the end, I think that she would have voted her out.
Okay. So you think Tulsi would have been in more danger than Lana at that point?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we come down to final three, and it is the puppeteers. One, how shocked were you that you had gotten there and actually made it? And two, how much pressure did you have on you to win one or two parts of that? And then I also, don't let me forget, have some viewers lounge questions for you.
Okay, so how shocked was I that I made it to the final three? You know, I have made it my motto in this game, and I said it a lot. And I said this to Maddie, too, when he kept trying to flip. You have to take it round by round, day by day. You can't freak out. You just have to play the game round by round. And that's what I did. I came into this game with a huge task of trying to make it as far as I possibly could, because I had not been doing well since I came out of retirement, and I was sick of it. So I switched up my gameplay. I played a little bit more aggressively, a little more old school Corey, and the more and more the rounds went, once we got past round 4, I definitely saw deep game in my future, but I never wanted to get ahead of myself. When people kept trying to say, oh, Corey, you're going to make it to the end of this game, you're going to make it to the end of this game, I would dismiss it immediately. When I would talk to my friends outside of the game, like venting to them about the game, they're like, you're going to make the end. I said, shut the fuck up. We're not talking about it then. I don't want to talk game because we're not there yet. Anything can fucking happen. So I never tried to get ahead of myself, because literally anything can happen in these games. And I was just trying to inch my way closer and closer. And that's what I did. In terms of how much pressure was on myself last night, I felt sick to my stomach all fucking day because I knew that in order to secure myself 100% being in the finale, I needed to win last night, and I needed to win part 1, because if I got to part 2, there was no way in fucking hell I was beating Lana for sure, but I didn't think I would beat Tulsi in an endurance as well, especially with that fucking shit we had to do. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself. I did think that Lana would pick me, not realizing that there was 100% a final 2 with her and Tulsi. I definitely think I definitely knew that they had something going on. I even think I remember asking Lana, like, does she think you're taking her? And all this stuff. And so, but Lana was, and I think we saw in Lana's elimination exit last night, she was guns ablazing trying to get to the end of this game, and she wanted to win, and so I'm sure she would have taken me, but I did not think Tulsi would. Tulsi was somebody I thought was going to take Lana, and I needed to beat Tulsi. And that did not happen in part 1, and I knew going into part 3 that there's no way Lana was winning that, because Lana is terrible about knowing what others are thinking. Like, she did terrible in the touchy subjects, and she did terrible in this part 3. So at that point, when it came down to Tulsi winning, I was like, and I think you all saw it on my face last night. Like, I genuinely thought I was done. I was gone. And I was not going to beg. I was not going to plead. I gave facts. I said that Lana's going to beat you if you take her. I gave the facts, but I wasn't going to beg because I just didn't feel like, I don't know, we both played a hard game and I didn't want to discredit that to Lana, and I felt like it was disrespectful had I done that. And that's exactly what she did to me. She was very disrespectful to me in her elimination, or not in her elimination, but in her speech to try and get her to stay. She overtalked me, and it pissed me off, but I was hoping that Tulsi would see all of that, and it sounds like she had already had her decision made up, but when that vote for Lana came up, my shock face, like, that was genuine. That was literally, I had no fucking idea this was going to happen. I was hoping it would, but I genuinely thought Lana would be sitting here. But here I am, so.
Okay, so these are a couple of rapid fire questions just kind of from me, myself. So one, if everything had happened exactly the same and Papa turned the vote around and you had gone home, what would be your thoughts right now on the vote if two girls are sitting at the end?
After seeing the way Lana acted last night, there's no way in hell I would have voted for Lana to win this game. She was poor jury management like fuck last night. As I'm ready to walk out the door, and she overtalked me and all of that. And it was just poor jury management. And then to find out that she played a good game. She did. She played a very good social game. And I think I said this last night in the Rites of Passage, Tulsi played a better strategy game. She also had great social skills. But she also, she is, and I said this last night, that round 4 had a lot to do with her. She was one of the big movers and shakers in that round that was able to, because she had that 2048 power, that was able to get us further. So yeah, Tulsi definitely would have gotten my vote.
Okay, so I wanted to go a different direction, but something you said made me want to redirect. Speaking of jury management, how do you think you and Tulsi both handled that? And throw Lana in there as well, since you were at the final 3. What were the 3 different, and it may not be 3, maybe we're all doing the same, but what was the difference in how you guys were actively jury managing, if at all?
Oh my God. Lana was constantly pandering the jury every chance she got. In terms of like before their elimination, like as they were going out, she was loving on them and this and that. It was just so obvious. And I'm like, girl, you're making me want to vomit. Tulsi, she was definitely actively jury managing and wanting to tell Kate about the elimination prior, and just, she was never actively like mean or anything like that to anybody. And I think Tulsi probably had the best overall jury management because she didn't come off as fake and she came off as very real. With me, I definitely probably had the worst jury management in terms of telling Oakley he's an asshole as he's getting voted out. And then definitely backstabbing Maddie, who, but there's nothing I really could have done about that. Like, there's no jury management in that vote. I mean, it had to stay a secret. It had to go down the way it did. But everyone else that went out the door, I don't think I had bad jury management with. I just think Tulsi probably had better. Are you there?
Damn it. I had a whole good 3 sentences out. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to where my brain was going before. And you and Lana had a chat for a very long time. In the last few days, I saw the chat kind of changed from getting to the end to Lana getting to the end. So I just want to go through your thought process on. Okay, so I was just in my head saying, why is Corey playing along with this? Was that just to soothe her paranoia, or what was going on then?
Because Lana is the type of person, and I learned this a long time ago, that if you do anything to set her off, I can't set her off. Because, for example, like when the whole thing with Zach happened, I got mommed. When I called Oakley an asshole, I got mommed. And if you do anything that is against what Lana wants, then you're going to get mommed, or you're going to get pissed. You're going to get a pissed off Lana. And I knew at that point that Lana was going to pick me in the end if she won. And I did not want to fuck that up. So I played along with what she wanted. Genuinely, at that time, I probably still was going to take Lana to the end. However, with what Tulsi had said last night, if I found out that Lana was lying and did have that final 2 also with Tulsi, I probably would have made the decision to go with Tulsi had I won. But no, I definitely, trust me, I was not overlooking that. I definitely saw it. It definitely pissed me off a lot. But I think I said this to one of my friends last night, actually it might have been my brother. Lana is somebody that, as the game went on, I didn't enjoy working with her as much as I enjoyed working with Tulsi. I think me and Tulsi are very similar humor, personalities, and Lana and me are not. And we definitely clashed a lot, but I needed to do what was best for my game and to get me further. And I could not piss Lana off.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question. I think you kind of already talked on it, but since it was a viewer's lounge question, I want to ask it. They wanted to know, why were you so shocked that Tulsi picked you?
Because me and Tulsi never once during that entire day talked. I tried to bait her to say she would pick me, but she didn't. And she kept saying, oh, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And I just want us all 3 to be there. And she was just not saying anything in terms of it. So I at this point had already suspected that the girls had a final 2. Didn't realize that it was 1 day prior to me and Lana having one. Which, who makes a final 2 on day 1 with somebody you don't know? You wait till day 2. But anyways, so it had a lot to do with, I definitely thought they had something going on. And I thought Tulsi being more loyal in that sense than Lana, because Lana, as you had seen in the chat, Nicole, Lana was all about getting Lana to the end. And so I knew Lana would take me. Tulsi, I didn't see it in that regard. Now, there was one comment that Tulsi had made the other night when we were all on call that gave me a little bit of hope. And this is what actually paranoid Lana the most, was she had talked about in her last game having her ally that thought that she was going to take that person to the end, but in reality, she never was going to, because she knew she couldn't beat them. And when she said that struck a chord with Lana, and it gave me a little bit of hope. So I tried to keep that in the back of my mind, but I just genuinely thought, because Tulsi would not talk about what would happen, I genuinely thought I was going home.
Scrolling up, there's like 4 more questions. Let me see what they had. What will you take from this experience? That's such a generic question. But I guess probably meaning, since you played orgs in the past, how does it compare, etc.?
It actually, I'm a very sappy, like, over the last 4 years, I've done a lot of soul searching, and I've tried to use these games as like experience makers in terms of how I look at myself as a human being, and this game challenged me so much in mind, body, and soul in trying to get farther and to build relationships. I'm a very socially inept person. I do not like social interaction. And that's why when I see a game full of a lot of people I don't know, I'm like, fuck, I have to actually try to get to know these people. And being able to build the bonds and the relationships that I did, I genuinely hope that they do stick and that they do go outside of this game. I am retired after this game, so I am not playing for a long time again. But it definitely will be a game I will always remember. I am proud of the way I played. I don't care what anybody said. If people want to call me a goat, if people want to call and tell me that I played this game for the girls and not myself, you know what? That is perfectly fucking fine. I'm proud of how I played. I played loyal as fuck, but I also played my crazy chaotic self, and I got myself to the end. Yes, I've made the end once, but this is the first time I've ever made it to a final 2. So I will take away that factor, and for that, this will always be the best experience I've had in a game, regardless of the outcome tomorrow.
Okay, they also want to know what one thing, well, they didn't say one thing, but like, if you could change anything about this experience or your game, what would you do?
I would have probably been a little less paranoid, but that's hard when you have anxiety. When you suffer from major depression disorder and anxiety, it's a little hard to change that. But in terms of like the game, I wouldn't change the way that I played the game, because I played loyal, and that's what I wanted to do from the beginning. Every round, if you look at it, I voted for the person that went out in every single round except for round 4, which that round still went the way we wanted, because the rocks happened and somebody went out that we didn't want. The only round that did not go my way in terms of somebody going home was the round Alex went home, and I was not involved in that vote. So any round that I was involved in, the people that I wanted to stayed in the game. Not that I was like the deciding factor in that, but I definitely take that as a fact that I had a big part in this game. So in terms of like how I played the game, anything like that, I would not change a damn thing.
So, not exactly for sure how I want to ask this question, but you've played a lot of games, and like you said, you're setting in the final 2. What do you think was the factor? Is it the format? Is it the cast? Was it powers? Was it luck? Is it not just one factor? What do you attribute to getting here?
I definitely think the format of being able to talk to everybody from the beginning definitely had a lot to do with it. And then it also, like, it's constant tribe swaps in this game, which in Survivor games, you usually can be in a great position, but then get fucked by a tribe swap. And then the merge in Survivor games are huge, because that's when everybody's coming together. And that's a lot of the time when I get fucked. It's because they want to try and take out big targets at that point. And in this game, that's not necessarily the case, because you're talking to each other the entire time. So I think the format definitely helped in that regard, because I was able to build relationships with, like, who knows if I would have been able to build relationships with Lana and then strengthen the relationships I already had with people like Alex and Maddie and create that group of 4 so early on, had I not had this format. And then Tulsi, who knows when I would have been able to start to formulate something with her. Because while our relationship didn't get strong until round 4, I was constantly trying to plant seeds with her that eventually got us to that point.
Okay, so I think that's all I have. That's all the VL has. So what are your thoughts on wrapping it up? Any thing you want to share with the audience, the final 2, your players?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed most minutes of the game. I won't say every minute. But most minutes that I was in this game, I absolutely enjoyed. It was so well worth the lost sleep, the being late to work, all of that jazz. I am nervous about tomorrow and the fact that I'm very well aware I am not winning this game. I know that a lot of people do not respect the loyal game, and they do not respect how I played. I'm hoping tomorrow I will be completely wrong in that. I just have to formulate my speech, which I haven't even worked on at all yet. And then my answers to my questions in a way that it doesn't seem like I'm already defeated, even though I am. But I just don't want. I know that they're going to be tough tomorrow. I know they're going to be hard on me, but I just want to hold myself together, not go off, and at least give myself a chance. I just want a fighting chance, even because I don't think people are giving me the credit that I do deserve, because I was a really big part, in my opinion, to get everybody to the spot that they got to. I keep saying this, the girls would not have gotten in the spot that they got to had I not made the decision that I made. And that was not a move on their part. That was solely me being loyal. So other than that, I'm just ready to get tomorrow over with. And yeah.
Okay. I think that's all I have. I'm actually telling Merle right now that I'm talking to you because he's messaging me. So I'm really excited you played. I know that you couldn't manage paranoia because you just can't always do that. And I know this format is not great for that. But I really think you have a lot to be proud of. I mean, you're going to have a lot in your story that you can tell if you can figure out how to tell it. So I'm glad that you were able to experience some of the positives and negatives of the power hunt and the experience of the power, being on the outs, being on the inside. I think you kind of got the full experience. So if you are taking a break, I think you really had a good experience at the end of your third job in orgs. All right, let me stop recording.